Okay, so this is my crawl space access, and obviously it's seen better days. This is how it's been since I moved in, and I've just been neglecting it too long. So went ahead and sat down at my trusty spool table there and started putting my thoughts down on paper. It was nothing intricate that I'm coming up with here, it's just good to have something to reference. That's my opening and the framing inside there, and the dimensions I'm going to need to make that door. So again, what I'm coming up with isn't anything crazy intricate or wild, I guess. But I did want two things. I wanted it to look nice and seal that up really good. So it's just a regular slat design door with a couple rails on it and a rabbet all the way around the edge there. That way it could slip into my opening. And as you can see there, that's not to scale, even though it looks like I've got a rabbet halfway through my piece. It's really going to be about a 1/4 inch deep. Right here, I'm just cutting out my slats, getting that nasty end off of there. You know how they are when you get them. And cutting them all to the same height that I need them to be to overhang that opening. And this one right here, I really didn't like the edge of it. So just grabbed another one of them that I got. They're all just regular 1x6 pine pressure treated from Lowe's. But that's the last one I thought I needed. You'll know what I mean here in a minute. Now I'm just ripping them down. The first cut's just to get a nice edge on one side of them, and then my second cut's going to be to get them to the right dimension that I want. Now, with pressure treated, I'm sure these are going to shrink a little bit, but I still wanted to go ahead and try to glue them together, the edges of them. That way I get a pretty airtight seal overall, even if they do shrink. And I get some gaps in there because I put screws in those rails that hold them all together. I can still just come back and put some silicone on those cracks on the backside. Nobody even know, and it'll still look nice. There, I just went to go grab a rag that I could wet down and wipe this glue off. That way I don't get it on my hands. I know my wife wouldn't like it if I came inside with some glue all over my pants. Ran up to the washer. And here's what I mean by I thought was my last piece earlier on the saw. Yep, I was one short. I'm sure I just had a brain fart moment and didn't cut 5 like I was supposed to, but went ahead and got that glued up and put it in the clamps. No biggie. And while those are in the clamps getting a good set dry, I am now cutting those rail pieces. So made my cut, went back to just double check on that dimension, making sure I made them long enough. They're not too long, you know. So there's that. Now, again, ripping that down to get a good edge on one side, then ripping it down to what I want, and then repeating that. That way they're both perfectly even. And here I'm just kind of laying them out, seeing what looks good, and then I'll just measure whatever that is where I like them, and transfer that mark to the top, and go ahead and screw these down. Not sure what happened with my video file here, but you can see I went to go get the screws and everything, and I was about to screw them down, but the video just got deleted or something, so I don't know. But I screwed each one of those down right in the center of each board, and here I'm putting that rabbet in the back side of it. I know everybody's going to cringe at me running a completed workpiece through a router table, but it was fine. So as you can see there, I'm doing a bearing change because I didn't want to just run that full depth all the way through there the first time and have tear out in any of the corners or anything like that. And so I ran it through a couple times with two different bearing sizes. Oh, almost forgot to show the camera. There we go. Now that is going to overhang, and that raised part is going to slip into the hole. Not much, but just enough. So here is my hardware. It's nothing special. It's a couple little gate hinges and a slide lock. You'd put this on like a backyard fence or something like that, or maybe if you had a little half door on your deck or something in front of some stairs. But it turned out to be just about the perfect size for what I needed, and I thought it would just look nice. But I did not like the finish that was on there, and so I just sanded them down with some 120 to scuff it up. That way it would hold the paint good and not want to chip off or anything. You can't see me doing it, but I'm doing the slide lock as well because I wanted them to match. Alright, now I'm back at the saw for my final bit of cutting. And notice that piece that I just set right there on that outfeed roller stand. That piece right there that I'm pre-drilling looks quite a bit shorter now, doesn't it? That's because it is. And you'll see why I pointed that out here in a minute. But I'm pre-drilling these to just do a little bit of infill in that hole. That 3/4 of an inch brings it out just enough for it to fit. I think my measurement was off when I was making the door, but it turned out to be perfectly fine, and it didn't really affect the functionality of it at all. But this is that top piece. This one was a little snug, and that was where my dog came up behind the camera, and I was making sure she didn't knock the thing over. There we go, bing, bang, boom. That one goes in just fine. And now, well, good golly, what is that? That's the scrap piece. I went ahead and pre-drilled the dang scrap piece and put screws in it and brought it down there. So I ran back up at the shop, grabbed that other board that I actually had, pre-drilled it, put screws in it, and came back down. Luckily, that only took a 1/4 of a second, thanks to Movie Magic. So there we are. Now, the exciting part, the test fit. Now, it wouldn't really be a test fit if we didn't drop it at least once. There we go. And, you know, everything fit really nice this first try, actually. I was pretty happy with the outcome. The only thing I overlooked was the surface was proud of the actual concrete, so I just went down there and grabbed a ripped piece of 2x6. I cut it down to 1.5. That way it would just fur out that edge of the framing there, and it let me attach my hinges too. And I just put a couple screws in that bottom one to do a test swing, and if it was off kilter at all, that would just get that hinge kind of twisted wherever it needed to be. Then I ran those screws in, then marked the holes for that little slide latch, got my drill, drilled into the concrete for some concrete screws, then mounted that bad boy. And as luck would have it, that slide latch sat perfectly the same distance off of the wall as the face of that door. So that little loop isn't necessary, but it does work as a good handle. Alright, well, that about does it for this video. If stuff like this is of interest to you, feel free to follow along on my channel. I should have another video coming out in a few weeks of a cabinet build. I'm going to be making a bank of cabinets for my shop, which should make a nice workbench for me too. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to come and follow along.